You know, middle-class Americans are getting squeezed by economic hard times here. So many people are feeling it. A new poll from the National True Cost of Living Coalition found that 65%, right there, that number right there, of middle-class Americans are struggling financially. Both Vice President Kamala Harris and also former President Donald Trump, at this point, they're trying to make their pitch to middle-class voters to not only get them on board with their campaigns, but to sell them on why they are the best candidate to lead America. Now, joining us now to discuss this is Pete Sepp, the president of the National Taxpayers Union. Now, Pete, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Now, Harris and, of course, Trump, they're making their pitch to the American people. Now, you've had a chance to go over, you know, their tax policies. Is there something that stands out that could really move the needle from either one of these policies for middle-class families?
Well, unfortunately, you can see elements of tax plans that would move the needle the wrong way, a few that might move it the right way, and a lot that is still unclear. In Vice President Harris's case, for example, as a presidential candidate way back when, she proposed huge tax increases, way bigger than her boss Joe Biden ever proposed and is currently proposing in his budget. So the question is, how much of her past will she repudiate? How much of the present will she embrace? And what in the future will she do to turn around some of the tax and spend policies that have characterized the Biden administration?
You know, that's a good point, because you have to look at the vice president at this point, kind of like from two angles, both from under the Biden administration, also what she proposed as senator. And let's first start with the Biden administration. You said if Harris is elected and carries out the priorities of the Biden administration, she would be advocating for this, a 10-year, $4.4 trillion tax hike and a $17.1 trillion in deficit. Now, kind of break down what those taxes would be and what that would mean for the middle class.
What this amounts to is the repeal of many of the 2017 tax relief provisions. The Biden administration has said that they only want to do that for families with $400,000 or more in income. Vice President Harris recently said she would abide by that pledge, not raise taxes on anyone below that $400,000 level. Problem is, the administration's already done that with its tariff policies, so middle class is already getting hit there. They're getting hit by inflation. Other tax increases that Vice President Harris proposed when she was on the campaign trail would dwarf those of her boss. Biden administration's proposing to raise the corporate tax rate from 21 to 28%. She advocated 35%. That's important to the middle class because the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office says that when you raise corporate taxes, you depress wages. Wage growth was one of the most important parts of the 2017 tax relief law. It put between $550 and $2,000 into the pockets of middle-class families by increasing economic growth. Why would you want to tinker with that?
Well, let's talk about
both Biden and Harris do.
Well, let's talk about one proposal when she was senator. This was regarding implementing a tax credit, $3,000 for singles, $6,000 for married people. That could cost $2.8 trillion, but there's also the flip side where they said, according to the Tax Policy Center, that it could actually help middle-class families. What do you make of that?
It could help, except for the fact that it would come at the expense of repealing the 2017 tax relief law for those same middle-class households. So you're really stuck in neutral. You're replacing one set of tax relief for another, and you're doing it very inefficiently, a straight-out credit instead of various tax policies that help to trigger economic growth. And in fact, Tax Foundation estimated an 855,000 job loss from Harris's plan. So that would take a step backward, even though she's trying to provide relief for the middle class.
Let's talk about former President Donald Trump. Of course, he's floated several policy ideas, including extending the 2017 tax cuts, further reduce the corporate income tax rate as well, but also impose a 10% or higher universal baseline tariff that you have some economists are saying will actually hurt the middle class and costing them around $1,700. What do you make of that?
In fact, most economists would say that because tariffs are not an imposition on the country importing the goods. It's a tax on the people in the United States who who buy the goods. And so when a politician says, I want to raise tariffs but not taxes, there's no difference there. You're going to pay a lot more money at the cash register because of government policy, and the Trump proposal would be a costly one for the middle class. I'm not sure how much the renewal of the 2017 tax relief would offset that, but we have to take a very hard look at our trade policies because they are also tax policies.
Well, thank you so much for your insight, President of the National Taxpayers Union, Peter Sepp. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.